Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Just to close the loop on the abortion issue, Brian Fisher is my name. Program is Focal Point. Again, Steve Day sitting in tomorrow. We've got word that Ted Cruz may be his guest tomorrow on that edition of Focal Point, so you'll definitely want to be here. And by the way, don't forget, if you live in a community or have friends and family that live in a community that does not have one of our radio stations, you can catch us online at afr.net. We've got audio and video streaming available right there. You can listen to it right through your computer. You can listen to it on the go. We've got apps for the iPhone, the iPad, Android. We've got podcasts. You can go to our website and see the video segments uploaded after the segments are over. A lot of different ways you can get the contact, but do not forget you can get it audio and video streaming at afr.net. Life Dynamics in Texas has done some examination about abortions in Texas. There are 95 zip codes in Texas that show an abortion facility or a Planned Parenthood abortion referral clinic. 72% of those zip codes have populations that are disproportionately black or Hispanic. In other words, it looks like Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry is deliberately putting these clinics in zip codes that are heavily Hispanic or black just so they can exterminate black and brown babies. This is genocide, is what it amounts to. In the state of Connecticut, for instance, there are 21 zip codes where abortion centers or Planned Parenthood abortion referral clinics are located. 15 of them, 15 out of the 21, have disproportionately black and or Hispanic populations. Overall, Life Dynamics identified 116 zip codes with more than one population control facility. Of these, 84 were disproportionately black and or Hispanic. So again, you're looking at somewhere 70 plus of the abortion clinics in America are put in predominantly black or Hispanic neighborhoods, as if they are targeting minority neighborhoods. Here's a winnable war moment from the Washington Times. When the Reverend Thomas Vanderwoody learned about a young couple's planning to abort their unborn baby that had been diagnosed with Down syndrome, the priest reached out and offered a deal: deliver the child, and he would help find an appropriate adoptive family. So here's a couple. They got a Down syndrome baby. They want to abort it. He finds out about it, offers to adopt this baby, but he had to act fast. The woman, who has not been identified for privacy reasons, obviously, was just shy of 6 months pregnant. She lives in a state that prohibits abortions after 24 weeks. So if she was going to get it done legally, instead of going to a Kermit Gosnell, she was going to have to do it right away. So he had to find a family in a hurry. So he approached a volunteer. They used the church's social media pages and posted an urgent Facebook notice on Monday morning of this week. There is a couple in another state who have contacted an adoption agency looking for a family to adopt their Down syndrome unborn baby. If a couple has not been found by today, they plan to abort the baby. If you are interested in adopting this baby, please contact Father Vanderwoody immediately. We are asking all to pray for this baby and the wisdom that this couple realize the importance of human life and do not abort this beautiful gift from God. And the post on the Facebook page said, please call the office after 9:30 a.m. on Monday. They got into the office at 9:30, and when they opened up, it was nonstop all day long. We were receiving phone calls from people who wanted to adopt the baby. Father Vanderwoody has gotten over 900 emails in regard to the baby. And the offers were narrowed down to 3 families, which the unborn child's parents are reviewing with the help of an adoption agency. So that is a winnable war moment. Pro-family crowd stepping up to provide a home for this Down syndrome baby. Now, the immigration issue appears to be DOA in the House. In fact, let's grab this clip from Raul Labrador from the state of Idaho. He's Hispanic from Puerto Rico, been a leader. This is clip number 4. And Raul Labrador has been a real leader on the immigration issue, and he's a guy that's been insisting on security first. Now, he's got some issues I disagree with. I think he is for legalization after the border is secure, similar to where Rand Paul is at. I disagree with that. But he has been very, very clear that we need to have border security first before we do anything else. And he was on by himself yesterday against a gang on MSNBC. At one time, there were 4 of them trying to take him apart, and he handed them their hats. It was masterful. his appearance on MSNBC is about 19 and a half minutes worth, every minute of that worth watching. But here is one segment of it, just about 1 minute, from his interaction with MSNBC, and you can see how ably he defended common sense on immigration reform. Let's listen.
I'll give you just one example. Steve Pearce is a congressman from New Mexico. There was a New York Times article written about him, how he is a very conservative. He's just as conservative as I am on many issues. He represents a district that is mostly Hispanic, and what he does is he reaches out to the Hispanic community. He doesn't pander to the Hispanic community, but he makes sure that he goes to all the meetings, he goes to all their causes, he does everything they do, and what he gets is the respect of the Hispanic community. I think we can be much better, and I think Steve Pearce has to be an example for every Republican. But pandering to the Hispanic community like the New Republic and MSNBC wants us to do, that is actually a recipe for disaster.
I would beg to differ on that last point.
That's a recipe for disaster, because what's going to happen is if you're pandering, it's going to be the side that panders the most that's going to get the results. We're never going to out-pander the
Never going to be able to out-pander the Democratic Party. So that's Raul Labrador just bringing it on MSNBC and saying, look, there's a representative in New Mexico, and he represents, or it's Arizona, I forget which, represents a largely Hispanic district. But he wins every 2 years. Why? Because he goes to their meetings. He doesn't pander to them. He's a social conservative. He's an economic conservative. He goes to the Hispanic constituents. He goes to their meetings. He speaks at their events, and he explains himself. He shows up where they are, and they like his message. You know, we had several calls over the last several days from Hispanics that say, look, they don't support amnesty. We saw the study yesterday about the Hispanic community. About 2-to-1 is pro-life. They support this Sanctity of Life bill in the state of Texas. Just in the state of Texas, 53% of Hispanic voters there support pro-life candidates and the pro-life cause. And so Raul Labrador says we don't have to pander to Hispanics in order to get their votes, and doesn't back down, shows some strong spine all the way through. Now here, and by the way, religious groups are active on Capitol Hill trying to push amnesty. You've got Sojourners, that's the quasi-evangelical group, so-called evangelical group headed by Jim Wallace, who's an out-and-out socialist. Every dime he gets from George Soros. The National Association of Evangelicals, the NAE, and they've gone completely off the rails on a lot of these social issues, but they're now out there flacking for amnesty. And the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, I don't know if you know this, if you're in the Southern Baptist Convention, your tithes are going to support somebody who is right now in Washington, D.C., roaming the halls of Congress, appealing for amnesty on your behalf, representing the Southern Baptist Convention. And any number of reasons why we need to tighten up on immigration. I want to play this one soundbite from George W. Bush. This is clip number 5, Rob. And I think what George Bush, there are a couple of things about this. Number one, George Bush would not weigh in on the gay marriage debate. He said, look, I'm out of politics. I don't want to get drawn back into that. Don't pull me into that. I'm out of politics. I'm off the stage. But then when they ask him about immigration, oh, man, he's all for amnesty. He's jumping all over that thing. We got to have a benevolent spirit. So he doesn't hesitate to wade in on the immigration issue, so I fault him for this. He's being very selective about which political issues he's willing to speak to, and the gay marriage issue just too volatile for him. He didn't have the courage to step up to the plate and say what he thinks about the issue of same-sex marriage. And I think on this statement about immigration, he kind of highlights and illustrates what's wrong with the whole debate on the Republican side. Let's listen.
We can uphold our traditions of assimilating immigrants and honoring our heritage of a nation built on the rule of law. But we have a problem. The laws governing the immigration system aren't working. The system is broken. We're now in an important debate in reforming those laws, and that's good. I don't intend to get involved in the politics or the specifics of policy, but I do hope there is a positive resolution to the debate. And I hope during the debate that we keep a benevolent spirit in mind and that we understand the contributions immigrants make to our country.
So that's George W. Bush. I'm not going to get involved in politics, but you better vote for amnesty. Did you catch that? That was an amnesty pitch. You got to have a benevolent spirit in mind. What does that mean? That's code for amnesty. So George W. Bush says, not going to get involved in politics, but man, whatever you do, it better involve amnesty, which means he's hip deep in the politics of this thing, and he's on the wrong side of this debate. Now, I have an enormous amount of affection and admiration for George Bush in a lot of ways. He's just absolutely dead flat wrong when it comes to immigration. And he says, he makes this mistake. He says the laws governing the immigration system aren't working. Well, the reason they're not working is because they're not being enforced. The system is broken. The reason the system is broken is because the law is not being upheld. The laws are not being enforced. It's not a problem with the laws. The problem is with enforcement. As I've said repeatedly, we do not need immigration reform. We need immigration enforcement. The laws are fine. They are simply not being enforced. Now, John Fund had a piece yesterday, National Review Online, talking about the fact that what President Obama is doing on Obamacare may wind up torpedoing immigration reform because everybody's seeing now he does not care about the rule of law. He is Barack the Lawless, King Barack the Lawless. And John Fund says, look, there's a lot of reasons immigration reform is in trouble, but there is another reason: the Obama administration's instinctive dishonesty and contempt for the rule of law are finally catching up with it. Few Republicans in the House, even those who devoutly want immigration reform, trust the Obama administration to enforce with consistency and integrity anything that passes Congress. So in other words, he could wind up torpedoing immigration reform because the Republicans don't believe, even if they passed a good law, that he would pay any attention to it if he didn't happen to like it. And we need to secure the borders. I've got a story here from Newsmax. The Mexican drug cartel, famous for its brutality, including kidnappings, dismemberments, beheadings, mutilation of rivals, has expanded into the United States with coast-to-coast recruitment effort. They're now involved in 276 cities. This is the Los Zetas drug cartel. We got to secure the borders. Drug cartels penetrating, active in 276 U.S. cities. Focal Point in AF4 Talk, back in 2.
My name's Garrett, and a few years ago, I went through one of those life-shattering events as I watched my marriage crumble and I became a statistic of divorce. Now, there were some pretty dark days. How could a Christian guy get divorced? I mean, I was the guy who told others how faithful God was, and then all of a sudden, my shortcomings were made public, and there I was, a statistic. Then a couple of great guys reminded me of what God's Word says about a bunch of men and women who goofed up, messed up, and even went through rough stuff like divorce. Isn't that just like God to say, hey, I love you anyway, even if you are divorced? Well, today I still don't have it all together, but I do know that Jesus has changed me, restored me, and I'm becoming the dad and the new husband that he wants me to be. If you're there today and you don't think there's any hope, think again. Jesus is ready to spend some time with you on the road to restoration. You can meet him right now. Just call 888-NEED-HIM or chat with us live at needhim.org.
Here's Dan Celia with today's Stewardship Moment.
There are 4 attitudes we can take as it pertains to God's will for our stewardship. We can say no to God, or we can say perhaps, or we can say someday, or we can say yes to God. Though the first 3 may